There have been a number of comments asking for an inventory tutorial, and so this little video series will go over the process of setting up an inventory system for your game with one of the ways that you could do it. And so if this one doesn't work for your game, you can check out the inventory example game or check out this community extension. But let's start off by setting up this one. Let's go over what's already in the game. So we have a sprite object for inventory slots, another one for inventory icon, and it has animations with the same animation name as the objects in the game. And then there's inventory text, which will be the number that's displaying the quantity of the object. And then we have the objects that you can pick up: wood, meat, and gold. So we'll start by placing the inventory slots into the game scene, and then we'll give them a variable called slot number. And then in the properties panel, we'll change that to 0, 1, 2, 3. Then we'll add a global variable called inventory and make that a structure, because we're going to save the information in a structure and then use that structure to display what's in the inventory. Now in the event sheet, under setup inventory structures, we're going to set up an event at the beginning of the scene and a sub event that will repeat for each object. And we'll set that to inventory slots. So it will repeat 4 times because we have 4 different inventory slots. Then we'll change the variable value of inventory, but we're going to modify it a little bit. So in GDevelop, if you try to add a variable into a structure in a place that doesn't yet exist, that variable will be added to the structure. It doesn't need to be declared. So inside the inventory, we're going to have a slot, and then what we put inside of that slot. And in this case, we'll start with the name. And for the slot, we're going to use that variable that we added to the inventory slot object. We'll type in inventory slot, slot number. And when you type in the variable like this, there is no autocomplete, but you'll know if you got it right or not because the action isn't showing an error. If I removed one of these letters and clicked away, it shows that I've done it wrong. And then we'll set this to a text because it's the name, so it's going to be a string, and we'll set it to empty. There we go. Now, if we open the debugger and check the inspector, we can go to global variables and see that in our inventory structure, we have 0, which is the first inventory slot, and inside of that slot is the name empty. And then for 1, it's the same thing, and 2 and 3. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3. And then next, we'll do the same thing, but we'll add quantity. And we'll set this to be a number variable and set it to 0. And now again, in the debugger, you can see that the 0 slot has the name empty and the quantity 0. So far so good. We've got the structure set up and we're ready to start adding things to it. So next we're going to go back to the game scene and open up the object group panel and create a new group. We'll call this items and add all of the items that we want to be able to pick up into that group. And then inside this variable section, we're going to add a variable for quantity and set it to 1. And then when I press apply, all of these objects now have that variable. So all of these have the variable quantity 1. And you can use that to determine how many of the thing are in that stack. Save periodically. Then next, inside of the pick up items from ground section, I'm going to add the condition to check if the player is in collision with the items group. And next, I'm going to create an external event. We're going to go to external events, create a new one, and call it add item. And we're going to link that up to the existing game scene and add an event. And now buckle in for this next part because we're going to search through the structure to check for any empty slots and then put our item into it. So to begin with, we're going to add a local variable called valid space found and make it a Boolean that's false. Then as a sub-event, we're going to add another local variable, call it slot number. So that will be the slot that we're looking for to see if it's empty. And then we're going to add another event that will repeat. And we'll make it repeat based on the number of children inside the inventory structure. So right now we have 4 inventory slots, so we'll make it repeat 4 times. But we'll do that by typing in variable child count, and then type in inventory. Now we'll add another sub-event, and inside this sub-event, we'll check to see if the slot is empty. So we'll check for inventory, slot number, name. So we'll check the name inside of the slot. Make sure it's text, and check to see if it's equal to empty. So now if the slot's name is empty, we'll trigger these actions. We're going to change the variable, steal this one so we don't have to write it again. And so we're going to set the name to the text equal to the object's item name. So if we pick up the wood, it'll be wood, and if we pick up the gold, it'll be gold. Then we'll do it again, but this time for quantity. And we'll open the action and change it to a number and set it to the item's quantity. Because again, inside the object group, items has the quantity variable. So we'll set it to this number whenever we pick up an item. Then, outside of this event, we'll change the variable slot number, so this local variable up here, by adding 1 to it. And so this is going to loop through the structure to check and find empty slots. And then finally at the end, we'll delete the item. So now that we're this far, we should test to make sure this works. So we're going to go to Game Scene Events, and when the player collides with the item, we're going to add link to external events. So we're going to put this as a sub-event and add item. And the reason we're doing it this way rather than having it just in the event like this is because you might want to add items to the inventory in ways other than just running into them. So now when the player runs into one of the items, it will add item. So let's test it to make sure it works. So with the debugger, we've got our structure here, and if the player runs into the meat, it gets deleted, and if we check, this first slot was given meat. So the name is meat and the quantity is 1, because each object has their quantity set to 1. So now this slot holds meat with 1, but we didn't tell it when to stop adding slots. So if I scroll down, you'll see that the second slot, number 1, also has meat. And the third slot, number 2, same thing, and same thing. And so we have to go back here, and this original local variable, valid space found, is going to make it so it only happens once. So we're going to copy this, change the variable to valid space found, and make sure it's set to false. Then we'll add another variable action here for valid space found, and set that to true. So now in order for this event to trigger, valid space found has to be false, but the first time that it triggers, it will change the variable to true. So it happens once, and then it can no longer happen again. And then we need to add valid space found to the delete action, because if you don't find a valid space and your inventory is full, you don't want to delete the item. So now we'll try it again. With the debugger, check our structure, run into the object, refresh, and you'll see that meat is here, and not here. This one's still empty, and so is this, and so is this. Only the first slot got filled, and the rest are empty. If I go pick up the other objects, the wood and the gold, and then refresh, you'll see that meat is still in the first slot because it got skipped over when I picked up the next item. Wood is in the second slot, and then gold is in the third slot. So this is just part 1 of this tutorial series, so if that video isn't out yet, be sure to subscribe, or just click on this video.